The last time we saw Bron Breakker in the ring, nothing about it felt normal, and now we finally know why. When a performer disappears without warning, fans instinctively look for storyline explanations, but sometimes a real story is happening far from the spotlight, and in this case, it was happening in an operating room. According to Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer Daily Update, Bron Breakker recently underwent surgery for what was described as a serious hernia. At the time of this report, there is no confirmed timetable for his return. Meltzer put it plainly, without embellishment, stating that Breakker had surgery and that there is no word on how long he will be out. That single sentence quietly reframes everything we have seen from Breakker in recent weeks. Before this report surfaced, Breakker's absence felt abrupt but ambiguous. WWE programming gave viewers just enough information to keep the story moving, but not enough to explain why one of the company's most physically intense performers suddenly vanished from active competition. With the confirmation of surgery, those moments now carry a very different weight. Breakker's final physical appearance came during the Men's Royal Rumble match, where he entered at number 2. That alone signaled confidence in his position, as early entrants are often asked to shoulder a heavy workload. What followed, however, was unexpected. Before Breakker could even step into the ring, he was attacked by a masked individual who was heavily implied to be Seth Rollins. The attacker delivered a stomp and escaped through the crowd, leaving Breakker laid out before his match had even begun. Despite the attack, Breakker still made his way to the ring. That detail matters because it speaks to how WWE wanted to portray him in that moment. He wasn't written off immediately. He wasn't stretchered out. Instead, he pushed forward, entered the match, and was ultimately eliminated by the number 1 entrant, Oba Femi. At the time, it played like a combination of chaos and resilience, a tough competitor fighting through adversity. The story did not end there. The following night on Raw, Breakker appeared again, this time not in competition, but in confrontation. He was visibly enraged, tearing apart the ringside area and directing his anger toward the announcers. The intensity escalated quickly, to the point where Raw General Manager Adam Pearce made the decision to eject him from the building. Viewed in isolation, that sequence suggested a loss of control. It looked like the beginning of a character shift or a disciplinary storyline. Now, with the confirmation of surgery, it reads very differently. Rather than an arc designed to build momentum, it appears to have been a controlled exit, WWE adjusting on the fly to accommodate a legitimate medical situation. This is where the context becomes especially important. Reports indicated that Breakker was originally planned to win the Royal Rumble match. That is not a minor creative direction. Winning the Rumble reshapes an entire WrestleMania season and places a performer at the center of the company's biggest event. Those plans were ultimately changed, with Roman Reigns winning instead and selecting CM Punk as his opponent for WrestleMania 42. When creative pivots happen, fans often debate whether they were reactionary or inevitable. In this case, the timing invites speculation. A serious hernia is not something that can be ignored or worked around indefinitely, particularly for a performer whose style relies heavily on explosive power and physical intensity. If Breakker was dealing with this issue leading into the Rumble, WWE may have already been weighing difficult decisions behind the scenes. It is also worth noting how carefully WWE handled his on-screen departure. Breakker was not portrayed as weak or defeated. He was attacked unfairly, fought through it, and then lashed out in frustration when the situation spiraled. That presentation protects his credibility while explaining his absence, a balance that is not always easy to achieve. The lack of a return timetable adds another layer of uncertainty. Hernia surgeries can vary widely in recovery time, and without official confirmation, any estimate would be speculation. What is clear is that this does not appear to be a short-term absence. WWE would not restructure major creative plans, including a Royal Rumble outcome, for an issue expected to resolve quickly. For WWE, this situation underscores how fragile long-term planning can be. Even with months of preparation, a single injury can force immediate changes. In Breakker's case, those changes were significant enough to alter the WrestleMania picture. That speaks volumes about how highly he was regarded internally and how central he may have been to future plans. For Breakker himself, the focus now shifts from momentum to recovery. Surgery is never just a pause, it is a reset. When he returns, the landscape may look different, but the way WWE wrote him out suggests they are intent on preserving his status. That matters, especially for a performer still establishing his legacy at the highest level. As fans, it's easy to view these moments purely through the lens of storytelling. But behind every angle is a human reality. Injuries are not plot devices, they are obstacles that require real healing and real time. The confirmation of Breakker's surgery reminds us of that distinction. Going forward, WWE will have to continue adjusting while one of its most promising stars recovers. Whether the original WrestleMania direction would have ultimately played out as planned is something we may never fully know. What we do know is that circumstances forced a change, and those changes will shape the months ahead. The most interesting question now is not when Breakker will return, but how WWE will reintegrate him when he does. Will they revisit the momentum he had entering the Rumble, or will the landscape have shifted too much in his absence? That answer will say a lot about how the company views his long-term role. As more information becomes available, clarity will replace speculation. Until then, all that can be said with certainty is that Bron Breakker's absence is rooted in a serious medical issue, not a creative whim, and that reality has already had a measurable impact on WWE's biggest plans. So with all of that in mind, do you believe Bron Breakker's injury directly forced WWE to abandon a major WrestleMania direction, or do you think the company was already preparing to pivot regardless of his condition?